What's up, Cerebral football fans? Happy Wednesday evening, everybody. I announced we were going to be doing this show earlier today. So I'm your host, Stephen Hyder, my co-host to this side.
What's up? How you doing, Ali Lombard?
Thank you guys for tuning in. So you could probably tell from the thumbnail right away what it is we're going to be talking about. And this is really a show that we kind of picked up on just from the general confusion inside the community we were seeing, which was, okay, like what was Jalen Hurts talking about? Like what is cover 7? What is he reading there? What is the flow? How do you what are alerts? How do you pick up on these things? So we're going to cover all that kind of chaos that surrounds that topic. But to begin with, Ali, I just have one quick question for you.
Sure.
Before the press conference, right? Because I think after hearing Jalen speaking, you change your mind a little bit, right? About what he's perceiving. But before the press conference, what were your initial thoughts when you saw the I won't say it was a miss, I'll just say it was a missed opportunity on the goal line.
So honestly, it's difficult for me to say that because when you hear it, it changes everything and opens up your eyes. I thought what he said was really smart, and I'm glad the question was asked. I'm pretty sure if I look at the film, he might look at the right side of the field pre-snap, but he's not going to be spending a lot of time there. So I apologize. I have a whole lot of plays in my head as we're talking about it. We're not talking about Kenneth Gainwell being open underneath and the throw to Smith in the back of the goal line. We're talking about Goedert breaking busted coverage, but the throw was to the front side to the left, and there was a two-man concept on that side, right?
You got it.
So, again, when you hear it, the scales lift from your eyes because he explained it so well, and I'm hoping he'll get more credit for that. He's a smart guy. He's a good dude. I would be willing to bet you, looking at the film, I haven't looked at the film, I would be willing to bet you that he took a look at the right-hand side of the field pre-snap, but post-snap he was completely focused on the left side of the field. He literally did not see Goedert after the snap. That's my bet.
Fair. I think for me, you don't have the coach's film immediately when you're watching the game. You're watching the TV copy, which is notoriously bad. I'm the same as anyone else. It was like, man, how did we miss Goedert that wide open? And then I kind of, I got a chance to actually see the film. I saw the coverage concepts. And here's the thing. This is what I'll say to start this conversation, guys, because I think this is a very important point to make when you analyze a quarterback. In the offseason, there was one particular thing that I really criticized Jalen Hurts for, which was playing on time and on schedule with the offense. It's hard when you have this type of situation to then criticize the young man for doing exactly that and missing the read. And to me, I think it's a stretch to say he missed the read. I don't know that he missed the read, but that he didn't get off schedule to see that was open. I think is a more adequate way of describing it. He played on schedule, and he took what was supposed to be there by the defense, but what he couldn't have predicted was that there would be a complete collapse in coverage. Does that make sense, Ali?
Yeah, absolutely.
So to begin with, why don't we start by talking alerts, Ali? When you played offense and defensive line, correct?
I did, yes.
A lot of people think alerts. They think quarterback cadence, right? Omaha. Just normally means opposite, by the way. Depends. Anything with an O, you got to always suspect it means opposite. They're changing the direction of something. What most people don't realize is there are alerts on defense. Do you want to talk a little bit about like how you do alerts on the defense?
So when you say alerts on a defense, you mean a defense alerting other defenders about their own alignment adjustments?
You got it.
As a defensive lineman, I didn't hear that. I mean, certainly the mic makes those adjustments. Certainly the free safety makes those adjustments. On the defensive line, I didn't see much of anything. I had my assignment, and we didn't do a lot of twists or stunts or games. My job was to attack the quarterback. Well, I was going straight downhill. And we probably had a linebacker, scrape around the back end to have contain. I was not the contained guy. So
second and third level, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much.
So basically, guys, some of the things that could be alerted or changed by the defense has to do with, maybe it could be something along like the leverage you're going to play. It could be something along the lines of, okay, this we're alerting, so we're changing to this. So now these gap responsibilities are about to change, right? where you have to be, what hole you need to fill into, defense's gap. Things like that can change on the second level. The third level has mostly to do with coverage or rotating something. So quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts is at the line of scrimmage, and I just want to give people a really quick look. Everybody in the chat, I want you guys to take a look, and I want you to see this is what Jalen Hurts is seeing pre-snap. All right, so I want you guys to kind of watch this pre-snap movement here for just 1 second. All right, that's the pre-snap look. Now, what I want everyone to kind of understand here is when you do a pre-snap look in the quarterback's eyes, this is really what he's seeing. So I'm about to share this with you guys. All right, this is cover 7. This chaotic mess that you guys see on the screen. This is what Jalen Hurts is looking at. This is what he's seeing. So there's a few terms that I want to go over here. The two big ones we have to probably cover first is what cover 7 is. Allie, I'll explain it the way I heard it. You let me know if you've heard anything different, okay?
Sure.
The way I understand cover 7 is that it is the way I was taught it as a quarterback is it's nothing more than a variation of cover 4, quarters coverage.
That's fair.
It's generally speaking, it's used to help you with spread teams, and it's very much a match zone system or match man system, depending on the scheme. Most of the time, it's run too deep. It's run with a too high safety look. Doesn't mean it always is. Doesn't mean it has to be. But most of the time, you got too high safety look there. It's man match, and you're matching the side by where the strength or the weakness is on the offense, where they're strong or where their weak side is. So, explaining this and you're looking at this here, can you tell right away?
So
Allie,
when
you tell right away? Can you tell right away where the strong side is?
Well, I'll tell you about the strong side. I just want to add this real quick, just in case people don't get it, because people are different levels that are listening. So when we're talking about man match, it's basically zone coverage, but it's so tight that it looks like man. Is that fair? Is that a fair summary of a hybrid system?
Sure.
Pretty much.
Sure.
So so strong side. Are you asking what the strong side of the offense is?
Can you tell from this picture which side the strong side of the offense is?
It looks pretty balanced to me. It looks like a 2x2, even split. I would say to the right side because that's where your running back is, if I had to guess.
Exactly. The reason I guess to the right side has to do with the running back, but it's mostly because I can see where the first to the flat defender is. The first to the flat defender is, generally speaking, always going to be on the strong side of the offense, guys. So that guy's always going to go towards the strong side to cover the flats. He's the first person to the flats. They have a bracket coverage on Goedert, and then there's a Meg concept. The next concept I think we have to get into here, guys, is to explain to you what Meg is versus what cone is. Let me see if I can't share a different screen here with you guys to help illustrate this point. So let me stop that screen. Let me share a different screen because it'll be easier to make the point if you guys can follow along with what we're doing. So, okay, we're gonna go here first, guys. So this, can everybody see this? Hopefully it's showing on the screen yet. This is the Meg concept to the bottom of your screen. Meg is a fancy way in quarters coverage and really in cover 7 to indicate the man coverage. Right away, we know that this is Jalen Hurts' read. And it'll be really obvious if you go back and you watch the little clip again, because what you're going to see in the little clip that makes a ton of sense, guys, is that you're going to see a motioned receiver. So just kind of watch as the receiver motions, and you'll see this a man look here. And this tells him which side is Meg, which side is cone. All right. Could you tell right from the snap, when you looked at this, Allie, could you tell right from the snap that there was going to be confusion in the coverage?
So I'm not sure what you mean by confusion in the coverage. I was looking at it. Certainly from the image right here, it does look like you got man coverage on the number 1 receiver on the strong side. It looks like that just based on the defensive alignment. Then, for whatever reason, we put, I guess for lack of a better word, what I'll call the Z, put him into inside motion. And then when that happened, there was an adjustment. Not a safety, was it? The number 2 corner on the right side, the first flat defender, you said?
The first to the flat defender is kind of like can't tell if that's the Sam linebacker. He's the linebacker that's right up over top of your running back. Here's your first
Okay,
to the
so can you run that one more time?
Sure, the pre-snap look.
Yeah, sure. And then the adjustment defensively.
All right, you ready? Here's the pre-snap look. So the first the flat's going in the right direction.
I'm not sure what position. I'm going to call him a number 2 corner on the strong side because he could be a linebacker, he could be a safety. I don't know what position he is. I can't tell from that look. But what I'm seeing is he's signaling a bracket on the number 2 receiver on the strong side. He's signaling that by his buzz, by his rock, by his whatever you want to call it, creeping closer to line of scrimmage. Are you seeing the same thing I'm seeing?
So here, I'll tell you what I thought I saw. This is what I thought I saw, Chat. Okay, my eyes told me this. If I'm Jalen Hurts, and mind you, his progression is different because we have the benefit of hindsight. It looks like to me is that the Meg corner, for whatever reason, because of the way that the release started, he thought that they were going to basically trade off on their personnel. It seemed like to me there was a slight hesitation because of how congested the area got. And it felt like in that instance, you get what I'm saying, Allie, that he thought, okay, I guess we're trading off because this is really congested. It seems like these two guys who are supposed to be bracketing aren't bracketing. We got a problem. To me, guys, here's the real problem. Let me take this one down. Let me share the real culprit here, in my opinion. Okay? The real culprit, in my opinion, is the bracket coverage messes up big time. The bracket coverage made a huge mistake in what they were supposed to be reading and doing, ironically, and it was ugly. From the film, it's really ugly when you watch that pre-snap movement because they seem completely and utterly lost, in my opinion, when I look at them. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to make sure I pull up the right one to show you so that way you can see. It kind of scrambles itself up a little bit on me. So here we go. I think it's this one here, guys. So when you come here, you can see the bracket. So you got one guy's playing inside leverage, one guy's playing outside leverage. They're both on Goedert. What's going to happen, though, as I run the full clip, watch how they do not actually follow Goedert, and there's just a mass confusion and congestion as they motion Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins motion completely, the Giants had a complete and utter failure coverage. I'll show you the full clip, guys. So here we go. See it? Look at him wide open. Nobody bracketed Goedert. Not one defender went off on the bracket to Goedert. Allie, what do you think?
So I think that was Quez. I'm going to call him the Z because it looks like BSV's off the line of scrimmage. I would say that the Zin motion, which is what we would call it, the Zin motion confused the defenders. They were supposed to bracket Goedert. They ended up probably bracketing Quez instead, which got Goedert way the hell open. But pre-snap, and there are various degrees of pre-snap. I mean, how much did Hurts see? Pre-snap, it looks like Goedert is covered. It looks like, Goddard's not the read. Maybe so much so that he was coached to look at the left side of the formation because the right side was not good. Even though early pre-snap, that motion, Quez looks like he's one-on-one for a nice fade route in the back of the end zone, potentially. Not that he's great at that. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure he was coached.
See, that's the thing is I think he was coached, but I think he was coached to stick to the read and stick to the design. You get what I'm saying? On the backside here, guys, I'll show you guys a couple of clips here that are important to see from the backside perspective of what's happening. It's really difficult to make certain determinations, and even I'm not 1,000% sure on this backside. So either this defender is supposed to be coning to the top, the safety is, which normally would happen. You would expect there to be a corner route on this side to Devontae, so you should cone up to the top. So I don't know if this guy even blew the coverage, or either that or they're bracketing the slot. Either could technically be true here on this side. I think that they messed up, personally. I think he's supposed to be coning over top of Devontae, and he doesn't quite get there. And instead, even he ends up down in the box, which actually makes a tackle on Quez. What are your thoughts when you look at what's basically the field side, so the top side of the screen?
So I think the safety's in good-ish position. I mean, it's the red zone. Everything is condensed. You could certainly have a couple of megs. There's not. I mean, if the safety was in between both of the two, I'm going to call them corners. I don't know what their position is, but they're in kind of a corner alignment. If he was, halfway between them, I'd say, okay, it's definitely a Cone, definitely a Banjo. I mean, Banjo coverage, cover 7 is so commonplace in the red zone. I'm pretty sure that Zin motion was designed to screw with it. I'm pretty sure that's what Sirianni, what Steichen wanted, and that's, a good strategy. Of course, we missed the opportunity that was created by that confusion on the front side. On the back side, on the field side, I mean, it's difficult to say. That's the thing about two safety defense. Your safeties are almost always a good position. Yeah. That's what I'd say in short. I don't see a great look there.
So what I think is supposed to happen is I think he's supposed to cone over the top if the slot goes up towards the corner. Okay. I think because the slot doesn't go up towards the corner, it turns into a bracket on the slot. Now, to me, it's a wasted motion.
Everybody, including me, when you say bracket, when you say cone, how are they different for you? What's the difference there?
So cone is more – they're very similar. Cone is just really – it's just a designation that's used in cover 7 to basically indicate that the corner is going to go back. He's going to drop back further, and then the safety comes over on the inside. So corner has outside leverage, safety has inside leverage. It's when you're basically tracking that slot, and then the guy who's playing the nickel would cover the flats basically on that side of the field.
Okay,
but because the slot doesn't do that, that triggers the coverage a little differently, which basically puts that safety right in position to get to Quez.
So you're talking about Banjo coverage, basically. One guy
it is a form of Banjo coverage, yep.
And the other guy takes the in. And then
you should probably explain that real quick, Ali. So Banjo coverage. So Banjo coverage is really what it means, just really simple short terms, everybody. It means when you trade, you're trading off coverage responsibility. You're switching off on the defender, right? So if a team runs switch routes on you, you're playing to an area. You're not necessarily playing to a man. Does that make sense, guys? Hopefully it does. I think everybody gets it, though.
So basically, really quick, this is zone coverage that looks like man coverage. That's why there's the trade-off, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just say some Jack Time Harder, long time no see, man. Love your handle, bro. What's going on, buddy? Cryptolicious, what's good, man? Ben Adams, how you doing? Chaos the Filthy, appreciate you, brother. Show enough, what's good, man? Roll me one more, appreciate you, brother. Natiro, Burgang 31, Kevin Cronin, Jinx Wolf. Appreciate everybody tuning in, commenting, guys. Thank y'all so much. So I want to run it one more time. Everybody, now that you kind of have a feel for what's happening, right? Because he doesn't cone over the top on the other side. So keep that in mind, guys. He's not going to cone over the top. He's going to come down on the slot receiver, which is going to put him in position. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run the video file for you again and then let you kind of see the way everything, falls out here, guys. So I'm going to give you the full look that Jalen would have expected, and then we'll watch how the play develops. All right, so I believe this is the full look here. All right, so kind of expecting him to cone over. This guy's going to cover the flats. Then on your other side here, you got Meg, which is a man concept, and you got that bracket down there on Goedert. The bracket gets confused by the motion, and nobody picks Goedert up. That's pretty much the basis of what's happening. Let me pull – Jack, I'm sorry, buddy. Let me pull your comment down for a second so everybody can actually see the full screen here. All right, so your Meg is at the bottom. You're zoning, coning over the top on the opposite side. You got your bracket on Goedert. That safety has got to make a decision between coning over the top in the corner or coming down and covering the slot. So let's run it, see what happens, guys, and you guys will have a pretty good feel for everything. Let me ask you a question, Allie. I don't know that this is true. If Jalen makes that read more decisively and gets it to Quez just a tad bit faster, you think he can score?
All right, so forgive me, I'm getting a little confused. Quez on this play is the Z. That is to say, I mean, he's not an X because he's not on the line of scrimmage. The guy at the bottom of the screen that's allegedly getting covered man-to-man in the mag. You said that's Quez, right?
Yes, sir.
So here's the thing, and here's kind of what I'm getting. So you've got the field side, which is the weak side. You've got the boundary side, which is the strong side. So here's where I'm going to start, and I'm going to attempt to answer your question. Cover 7 is so ubiquitous in the red zone. I think that Sirianni should scheme against it. I don't know if he tried to on this play, and Jalen made a mistake, but I think the primary read should be to what I'm going to call the Z motion side. That is to say, Z inside motion. That should be the read. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe Jalen did make a mistake. As far as the other side of it goes, like you're talking about, I don't know who that receiver is, the number 2 receiver on the field side. I don't know who that is. Maybe that's Devontae Smith, somebody else, because you said Quez was on the other side of the field. It looks like he had a quick out. And basically, I don't want to call it curl flats. It's quicker than that. It's shorter than that. The inside receiver, the number 2 receiver, had basically a quick out, and then basically the number 1 receiver had a quick slant-ish. Is that basically accurate? Did I see that right?
Yes. So Quez is in the bottom of your screen. He's the motion. He's the motion player. To me, that's where the read is designed to go. It is designed to beat that coverage. What he didn't anticipate, what he didn't see coming is that, okay, I think you could criticize Sirianni for one thing, Allie.
Sure.
Why didn't you work the slot over to the corner to take the safety? I do think that's fair. I don't think the spacing was right. I think you could criticize him on that part of it, saying, like, wouldn't it make more sense to work the slot to the corner, pull that safety and the corner with you, and then force your nickel to come over and cover the hitch route? That sit-down route there. So that opens up that part of the field for you for that little motion to work. That part I do think you could criticize.
I want to be super clear. First of all, I love doubles. We should do more of it. We don't do nearly enough, and maybe this is why we don't do nearly enough.
Sure.
But so there's the field side, and then there's the boundary side. And I'm curious what you're talking about. So going back to the field side, the number 2 made a quick out that the safety crashed on, I believe, when that was the throw that was made. And then there was a quick in-breaking route by the number 1 on the field side that didn't really go anywhere. But everybody's upset about the boundary side. I'm not even sure that Jalen Hurts looks at the boundary side. I'm not sure that he did. And if he didn't, and that was in the scheme, if that was in the play, that's not a good thing. So there are I want to take a minute on this. There are a bunch of things in the Giants film, in the Washington film. There are a bunch of times where he's had receivers open, and depending on timing and how you feel about it, we can talk about it. With alerts, there are receivers that are not a part of the progression on certain plays. It's pre-snap. Okay, well, if it's single high safety, go for the deep shot, the 7, the 8, the 9 to the boundary. That's the throw you like to make. If it's in single high, if it's in too high, just don't even look that way. But basically, Jalen Hurts, he struggles to make quick reads and stay on schedule. And one of the ways that I think Sirianni's trying to fight that is to shorten his progression, to create alerts, to remove receivers from the progression so that he can make those reads pre-snap. I don't know if that's the case here or not. And that's the interesting thing.
I think Jalen made the correct read here. To me, it looks like it's the absolute correct read. You can maybe say, like, okay, you got to throw that ball with a little more anticipation, get it out a little faster. I still don't know that it's reaching the end zone because of the spacing. I still don't think it's a score. So I think what happens here is you can see what I'm showing you guys. So look to the field side, top of your screen, field meaning the greatest area distance, right? You got a 2x2 set, as Allie pointed out. If you look to that slot receiver where I got the circle at, where you got the nickel cornerback with the circle around him, what I'm supposing is what I think would have been a better play design here is to run him on a corner route. So he pulls that safety over the top, and he pulls, because I'm assuming this is definitely a banjo. He pulls the safety, he pulls the corner, he pulls the field side corner to the corner of the end zone, and then that nickel corner that I have the circle around has to then come and cover Devontae or whoever that is over there on the hitch route. I think that would have created the spacing to possibly and potentially get Quez into the end zone if he can turn the afterburners on and beat his guy. That's what I'm saying about the spacing, Allie. That's what I mean by spacing. I feel like Sirianni could have done a better job with the spacing on the play. I feel like Jalen Hurts could have probably made a little bit more of a decisive anticipation type throw there. But I think he made the right read. And I think he illustrated great knowledge over the game when he was in the post conference and said, you know what I mean? This is what it is.
Right. So what he was talking about is, okay, if your guy's in single coverage, you should make that throw, and you should make it quick with anticipation. But if he's in double coverage, as is often the case with cover 7, you want to look somewhere else. And pre-snap, it was difficult to tell who's in single and who was in double. It looked like
Yeah.
Quez was in single, when everything started. But then when he did his in motion, he ended up getting double teamed, and then Goddard was wide open. And then on the field side, it was basically a crossing concept. You had I'm not sure. I don't want to say there was a screen involved in that because I know the Eagles like to do that because their receivers are so small. But the idea was to do a corner route from the inside receiver or some kind of out-breaking route near the end zone, and then having the outside receiver, the number one receiver, doing the in-breaking route. That's super common in the red zone. There's not much you can do in the passing game in the red zone. That's the thing. There aren't many options there. I mean, there are a few, I guess, but that's one of the main ones. And I certainly understand Sirianni calling that as a play. So there's just not a lot of margin for error. And that's why being a quarterback in the red zone is so hard.
Yeah. And Jalen, I agree with you saying that there's different formations to use here to attack middle open, middle close. Or to get the determination you're seeking, such as a 3-by-1 set over a 2-by-2 set. But I think that the play worked. I just think the spacing was bad. I thought he did the spacing wrong, in my opinion.
One thing, as much as I love doubles and 2-by-2s, as much as I love that, and I want to see this between the 20s, in the red zone it gets hard. In the red zone it gets difficult. In the red zone is maybe the one case where I think a 3-by-1, some stacks, some tights. I think that's a better course if you're going to show a passing game in the red zone, especially the low red zone.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into a little bit of what you were talking about, because I think we've kind of covered this pretty well. I think everyone kind of gets what we're saying here, which, in my opinion, and tell me, Ali, if you differ, give your opinion on it as well. But my opinion is that, yes, it was open. It would have been great if Hurts saw that and got the ball there, but the read was the read. We asked him to play on time and on schedule with the offense, and that's what he did. I feel like, okay, like it's one of those things where it's like, man, I wish there would have been more of an indicator that they were just going to completely forget who they were supposed to bracket and that to be known at pre-snap. But I just don't think there's any way of knowing that pre-snap.
So basically, the short version, the quick version of it is pre-snap, Goddard was covered. Post-snap, he was wide the heck open. And
Exactly.
because Hurts was coached to look for the read on the field side between those two receivers, he just didn't see Goddard. And because he's staying on time and schedule on schedule, especially in the low red zone where you have to be on time and on schedule, or else you get sacked, fumble the ball, and you lose points. There's zero margin for error. Everything is so fast in the low red zone. You got to make a decision. You got to make it fast. And pre-snap, Goddard was double teamed, bracket coverage, banjo coverage, and you see that pre-snap. You call it an alert, you call it whatever you want to. That's not the read. You got to go to the other side of the field, or you got to go off the Zin motion guy or whatever. And so I would say, okay, Hurts not throwing the ball to Goddard was the right read pre-snap. I will say that. Guaranteed. Because he looked like he was doubled, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I will say that much as far as, all the stuff on the field side and spacing and the concepts. I'm going to leave that one to you, but I will say that Hurts made the right decision because you got to be quick, because you got to be decisive in the low red zone. He made the right decision not throwing the ball to Goddard. He had no idea Goddard was going to be wide the heck open because the Giants defense, which is usually very good, he usually has a very good defensive coordinator, very good defenders that are very long and very good in the red zone. I think he made the right call.
Yeah. And it's tough because like I said, it's not a misread, it's a missed opportunity. They're two different things. I think he made the right read. I think the opportunity was missed because, man, if he comes back and has any shot at seeing that, gets any glimpse of, holy crap, why is Goddard just standing there making a ham and cheese sandwich in the end zone? Like, it would have been such a great play, and it would have been an early dagger because I don't know how you come back from that as a defense, man. That was ugly on the film. But one more time, guys, I'm going to run one more time for you guys. Yeah, it just stinks because that safety was just sitting there on it. That's what I'm saying about running him out of the area, is that if you can run that safety out of the area, that might have had a shot. But I do agree with NFC East Beast. It's probably just a step or two too late on the throw. It was the right read, though. I mean, he read the coverage perfectly. It's just it's unfortunate. So I want to get into a conversation you said about to end, the second half of this discussion here, Allie. We talked about this idea of what Nick's doing to help Jalen Hurts out, and broad brushes that are not specific to scheme per se. Is we talked about Friday meetings. He had Friday meetings with Jalen Hurts to work with him, right?
Right.
Moved Brian Johnson down, started creating a little bit more of a direct communication between offensive coordinator, coach, and quarterback. Then, on top of that, we find out he's meeting with Jeff Stoutland to work with the running game. So he does all these broad strokes, these broad painted things. But what do you think from the in-game stuff in terms of concept design? You kind of started into that where you said, I think some of the things that he's doing here is trying to use alerts and trying to basically get Jalen comfortable with reading coverages is by helping him with, if you read the coverage right, you shouldn't need to go through 3-4 read progressions.
I think, and I could be totally wrong about this. I don't really know, but it's my belief, it's my hypothesis that there have been games, I've got pictures, New York games in particular, where there have been 5 receivers that were open, and asking Hurts to make a 5 receiver read is a bit much. Asking, forgetting his name, Drew Brees, to make a 5 receiver read is a bit much. Well, I think one of the reasons, and feel free to quote me on this, I could be wrong. This is what I've heard. I could be wrong. Drew Brees got really good at reading half the field. And when you talk about, flood routes and all this other stuff, sail concepts, I think is a phrase that's applicable here as well. 3 floods, 4 floods, whatever. The idea is to attack one side of the field. And then you can do an alert on the other side, a pre-snap alert, in terms of especially, single high versus 2 high safeties. That's, one of the best examples usually. And so what's happening, I think the reason that Hurts is passing on so many receivers that are deep and that are open is that in the scheme, I believe that Sirianni is intentionally removing those from the progression. They're a quick, if it's single high at the snap, okay, he's open. That's the alert. Throw the 7, the 8, the 9 to the guy on the boundary because that's your throw and it should be open. I mean, unless you're playing Derwin James, who's great sideline to sideline, that's going to be a pretty good shot most of the time. But if it's too high, then obviously those routes to the outside are not going to be as good. And so you want to focus. Basically, it's getting Jalen to focus on a smaller number of variables so he can be more efficient in his reads and his progression and his timing.
I can see what you're saying there. I think one thing that needs to be stated about alerts is that the reason you use alerts is to begin with, number one, there's more than one possibility for the way you can read when you come up to the line of scrimmage, right? You can easily change and adjust those reads based upon the pre-snap look that you're getting. And I think that's why a lot of times you will use an alert because you're saying, okay, alert, listen up. We're changing the progression here a little bit. This is what the defense has given us. This is what should be open. And I think that's, I think that's kind of where they're trying to progress Jalen at this point. I think they're trying to get him to see that and to progress along. And I do see some subtle improvements because, he's made a couple of really, really good passes in tight windows, but nonetheless, he's made some really good passes where it looks like to me as if he went alert and he's reading and then coming up to the line, alerting, changing his progression, and then making the throw. And it's interesting because, some of the things that were said to us in the preseason or in training camp and like when in the summer with Nick Sirianni remember, they said they were going to drastically change the responsibility of the receiving core and quarterback. Mm-hmm. And these receivers were going to be able to option routes. So option route means, guys, is that there could be more than one possibility of what you do with the route. Every system runs them, but Sirianni was going to basically really lax on that ability to do that. And if you're going to do that, you have to have a lot of chemistry between your quarterback and your receivers. They really need to be in sync with one another to be able to execute that. That was a lot to throw on Jalen's plate, if I'm being quite honest. That's not an easy thing to do. There are some guys that have been in the league a long time that probably would struggle with options as prevalent as Nick was saying they would be.
Absolutely.
What were your thoughts when you heard that Nick was going to do that?
I mean, I know he's got rapport with Devontae Smith. I've heard he's got rapport with Quez Watkins, and that's certainly good. I mean, if you're going to do it, you might as well have a couple of receivers. The big thing with what I'm going to call, I guess, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's spread. It's West Coast. People call it spread coast sometimes. I'm not sure if that's what Nick Sirianni is trying to attempt. I know people want to have a Kansas City offense and whatever, or a Chicago offense or whatever, but it's a quick rhythm timing offense where you throw the ball to a spot. And the thing about option routes is the receiver and the quarterback need to know what spot the ball is going to go to. And the receiver makes the decision pre-snap as he's in the stem and whatever. And, Jalen's got to know where to throw the ball. And it's got to be a throw with anticipation, which is not a strength.
Yeah, and I think that's the bigger point there is that Natiro, so I'll pull up what Natiro said. He said, Hurts is good at reading pre-snap, but bad at reacting post-snap.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I think they somewhat go hand in hand, though, Natiro. I do think there are some things post-snap, like where, early on in the season, it was a few weeks ago, you remember we had the interception on the Jalen Reagor route. I hate to keep belaboring that point, but it's just such a clear illustration of what we're saying, to where you got safety help over the top. You got a corner who's 8 yards off, probably drastically. I'm probably exaggerating that, 5-6 yards off. And then you got essentially a go route. You don't put the ball there. That's not the right read. But he's made improvements. He has made improvements. It is a lot that we put on his plate. It's interesting. It's interesting to say the least about the way they've approached the offense. And I think the smartest thing they did was to go back to the run, hit the reset button, and really rethink the concept and the design of the offense.
Let me jump in on that real quick. Let me jump in there. I love that point. So you'll remember last week or so, I think I told you that JG isn't aggressive when he wants to be or when he should be. He is only aggressive when he has to be. My distinct belief, based on what I've heard, based on what I've seen, Sirianni does not want to run the football. He doesn't even run the football when he should. He runs the football when he has to. He tries to throw first. He tries to be I love throwing the football, with the right offense, with the right scheme, with the right team. That's great. I have no issue with that. It's cool. Warren Moon, one of the greatest passers in NFL history, doesn't get nearly enough love. Great quarterback. You're a quarterback coach. You were a quarterback. I'm sure you'd agree with that, right? So I love great quarterback play. I love great receivers. And we can talk about, Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins, and we've got some good receivers. And here's the thing. When Hurts can be in timing and he's got a clean pocket, he can be a great thrower. Unfortunately, this is the NFL. That doesn't happen very often. So anyway, what I'm saying about Sirianni, to get you back to your broader point, I strongly believe, hot take button, let me hit it right now. Sirianni only runs the ball when he has to. He said in his halftime speech, sometimes we got to get grimy, sometimes we got to do this. He knows he has to run to win. I'll give him credit. There are coaches that are so just stuck up their butts and in their systems, I'm going to do it my way. And I will give Sirianni credit for this. He may hate it, but he does it when he has to. And our team is a running team. It just is. The line is a running line. The running backs are runners. The receivers can be great blockers. Jalen Hurts is athletic when he's healthy. I mean, obviously, I like the fact we're getting a chance to give Hurts an opportunity to grow. I think that's a good thing. But to my broader kind of hot take point, I think Sirianni hates running the football. He only does it because he knows he has to.
That's fair. I mean, it's hard to judge him because, I don't think that the main person that they view him as his protege is necessarily completely opposed to running the football. And Frank Reich, I think Frank Reich, it's a big staple of his offense. But he also came up underneath Mike McCoy.
Right.
You probably have to really look at the influences that Mike McCoy had on him. What I will say in terms of concept and design is this. I wish that we did a little more understanding with the passing game, use the running game essentially to set the passing game up.
For sure.
And instead of doing so much of these high lows and half field, there's nothing wrong with half field reads. Drew Brees made a career out of it, won a Super Bowl. And he was very much a half field read quarterback. With that said, I want to see more of these step drops that you can utilize from the center. Use things like the flat 7, that's still it's a high to low situation, but you can actually use play action to your advantage, especially if you're running ball and teams might actually think you're gonna, you can do that. You can use sucker routes. Sucker routes just meaning that you're using one of your routes to kind of pull people away and to kind of create an opening for another person. I would like to see more of that because you can define the reads on a 5 to 7 step drop, and I think it'll help. I actually think it'll help. I think it'll help them a lot. We do run dagger. Dagger can very much be a 5 to 7 step drop thing, more closer to the 5 step. But dagger concepts can, that's definitely one of the things we run. But I mean, what do you think about that?
So big picture, I agree with you. We need to run the ball more and run more play action passes with 5 to 7 step drops off of that.
Yeah,
and I think those things go together really well. Here's the thing. I put a comment. I put a comment on one of your videos this morning. The only team that has ever stopped the Eagles' running game is the Eagles. That's it. No one else, in my opinion. I mean, there have been various teams that have created looks that haven't been super advantageous, but we're the only team that stopped our run game. By the way, our run game was so close to the 72 Dolphins, 8 straight games, but we couldn't do it. We had to stick with the 85 Bears and whatever, which is still really good. But we are the only team that stopped our run game. The only team. And there are looks out there that could do it, but no one's really invested. We're not getting, and this is one thing we can do maybe next week, get some data on who's in the box, the tackle box in particular, like how many defenders are being devoted to really stopping the run. Because a lot of teams, I think, run too high on us. And when they run too high, it complicates the pass game, especially trying to throw the ball outside like Jalen Hurts like to do. And so, I don't know. I wanted to go general and macro and big picture. There was one thing you said earlier. I think this was off camera or whatever. We talked about banjo looks and how, one guy's got the inside, one guy's got the outside break. You also mentioned people being able to banjo high-low. I don't really understand that unless there are two defenders. The idea behind a flood concept is to put a zone defender in conflict. Do I take the high guy or do I take the low guy? And so what are your thoughts on that? First of all, what did you mean by that? And can you give us an example of kind of what that looks like?
Yeah, it's when you got someone coming out of a stacked set. It's not you're offensively you think of as high and low. Defensively, you're talking about somebody has to scrape over the top. Somebody has to take the top. Somebody has to take the lower end of things. So you're banjoing it by the depth. And it's normally when you have a team that's coming at you in a stack set. Instead of playing east and west, you get what I'm saying? You're playing high and low on it.
You're talking about stacked receivers.
Exactly.
Okay. And all right, so that stuff is super close quarters, if I'm picturing it right. I mean, we're talking the first 1 or 2 seconds after the snap.
Sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
so
we're talking about very split-second decisions from the secondary.
Right. And I'm not sure I want that as an offense. I mean, a stack look can be great. Certainly, if we need to get off the line of scrimmage, if we're having issues with man press or whatever it is, I mean, it has its place, it has its value, but I don't like the idea of having to get the ball out super quick and making super quick decisions, especially post snap. So
yeah, no, I don't. I'm not saying it for offense. I mean, I think that you can run stack sets and you can do things to try to get your guys free. It's not necessarily against banjo coverage. I'm not worried about it from a banjo standpoint. I mean, I think the way we try to attack banjo coverages is the same way we try to free ourselves up from man coverage. Is we run a lot of rub routes. To be quite honest,
right.
I think it's what Nick likes to do.
Sure.
And I think it's the West Coast influence on him is to do that. Now, what I will say is that in terms of the flow of the offense, I expected to see a little more outside zone than what we've gotten so far this year, but I'm not going to criticize it because we've been so good at what we've done.
Sure. And let's be clear, what have we done in your mind?
Just multiple. We've been very multiple, from power schemes with gap blocking to inside zone to zone reading. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We've just been really multiple. And we've used some outside zone. It's not like it doesn't exist. Sorry, guys. Hello, Moto. But it's not that it doesn't exist, but it's that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought we might see a little bit more to that. But, to
Right.
be fair, Miles Sanders has really turned, and he was supposed to be the feature back. He's kind of turned into a bit of a one-cut runner.
Yeah, he's definitely gotten – I think he's gotten more decisive, which is good. Like, in all seriousness, we're going to probably talk about the running game and Miles Sanders maybe next week. And, I have some hot takes about Miles Sanders, but he has grown a lot. He has improved, and he's a good dude.
Yeah. Hang on. There's a couple I want to read here. I thought this was funny, Messiah. Messiah said, I played high school quarterback, and this is all somewhat new to me, but I understand a little bit. It's so confusing. Messiah, just for clarity, the same thing. I played high school. I learned a lot of this from coaching in camps. You get around guys who have better minds than you that teach you it. I learned a lot of this from coaching and being in camps, not from playing. We weren't running this new, I played in the 90s. Late 90s, very, very early 2000s. Like, we were playing mostly 21 personnel. Some wing formation stuff. We weren't.
Yeah, me too. Wing T, 1998. 1998 state champs. I played in 1997. But yeah.
We weren't playing spread. Yeah. That's a lot different from, the era of football today is a lot different from the era of football that I played in. With that said, guys, there's a couple of you. Let me get to a couple of comments here. NFC East Beast, I thought this was really funny. NFC East Beast said, this season has been all about finding out what you have in your second-round draft pick at the most important position. That's basically what Lori said after Voldemort's trade. I love it, NFC East Beast. It's funny. All right, Jalen, you put up a couple of really big questions. Give me 1 second, man, because Jalen, sometimes I got to think before I talk when it comes to Jalen, man, because he'd be asking some complex questions here. This thing doesn't stop. All right, Jalen said, does it trouble you a lot of our yards come from yak versus actually pushing the ball? What I mean is that there are much of scheme throws that are a 3 to 7 yards versus that coming in a more natural reading play, progression play. Yeah, I think it plays off a running game a little bit, though, Jalen. Like, I think it's meant to supplement the running game. So I do think that's part of it. But I definitely understand what you're saying, which is, we're not even 100% certain, given what we see on the field, whether or not we can do certain things offensively. Some of that has to do with our receivers, Jalen. I'm not convinced that our receivers can do much of anything right now. They definitely concern me at the moment.
Let me jump in on that really quick. I think that's a great question. So I'm going to agree with Steve with what Steve just said in terms of our triple option, quadruple option look when Hurts is healthy. A lot of these short passes are very much an extension of the running game, which I think is good, especially in the red zone. I also kind of sort of agree. Our receivers are yak receivers. They just are. And there are various reasons for that. Maybe it's they're small and they're fast, can't get off a man press, things like that. We're throwing some people deep. I do agree. I want to get back to the outside zone thing. Maybe Gainwell can help or some other people, maybe Kerryon Johnson or whomever. What I like about the outside zone, we should run it a little bit more, is we can have a nice PA boot game. I think Hurts' ankle is probably healthy enough to do that. And then you're going to get those deeper routes. It's not going to be all yak stuff off of mesh or whatever. And I think that'll be really good. I'd love to see that this season. That would be great to get on film as we're evaluating all these players.
Yeah, I kind of expected that we'd be a bit of a yak team underneath Nick. When I thought we were going to see the nomenclature being different from a true West Coast system, but nonetheless a little bit more lateral offense. I kind of anticipated that. I thought we'd see a little bit more of the over routes and especially like drag routes, things like that. We don't seem to utilize a lot of the drag routes. I mean, we do some mesh, we do things like that, but I thought it to be a bigger part of our offense than what it is. It's mostly a lot of tunnel screen. It's a lot of screen stuff, which, as Ali is saying, it's really an extension of the running game. I just thought this was a funny quote here. He said, now you're speaking my language with the run game instead of all these boogie pass game concepts, except on screens because trucks get to run over Honda Civics.
Indeed, Jalen. Man, after my own heart. This is December. This is football. You should run the football.
Yeah.
You've got the best run blocking offensive line in the entire league. I swear, hot take, Siri just hates running the football. He just does. For whatever reason, there's nothing wrong with it. I just think it's the truth.
All right, let me get to your question real quick, Philly 5000. First off, I love the fact that he names it 5000. But Gate City, what personal issues are we having? Personnel, my bad. Issues are we having for the game against the no names? The last I heard, we had some issues on the D line. I don't know if that's resolved itself, but they happened on Monday. So there's a lot of time if these guys are the V word.
I think that rule is changing, by the way, actually. The V status doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, they changed the rulings. You're right. So as long as they come out and they get a negative test result, then they should be good. And since it happened on Monday, there's a pretty good possibility they might play. I mean, unless they're legitimately are going to be down and ill for 10 days, you know what I mean? Then maybe they end up missing this game. But I think there's a good chance that we at least get Kerrigan back, and maybe we get one of the two that are down, whether it's Derek Barnett or if it's Teron Jackson. I think there's a chance that we get one of them back. All right, there was another question Jalen asked. I'm going to try to go up here and track it, guys. It was a lot. I saw a lot of you guys kind of chiming in here. So Jalen said, have a scheme ideology question for y'all. Do you prefer a true number one cornerback who travels with the wide receiver one? Basically, the cornerback one covers one side, and then whoever comes. Or a cornerback one who goes with the wide receiver two, and then you bracket the wide receiver one. I prefer bracket. You can really look at this as three ways. Basically, you got a field side and a boundary side corner. You got a true CB1 who travels with the team's best receiver, or you got a difference in ideology in the third way, which is your CB1 travels with wide receiver two, and then you bracket wide receiver one. Do you have a preference there?
So it really depends on your personnel, I think. So obviously the NFL, the goal, the middle of the field is much narrower, so field and boundary distinctions don't make as much difference. But there are some corners that are more physical. There are some corners that aren't as great in space. If there's a massive difference between your corners, you should have a field corner and a boundary corner in that sense, in that way. I'm not really familiar with defensive backs. I am assuming that they have the same issues as linebackers and defensive linemen when they're backpedaling and whatever. Some people prefer certain sides. Some people just move better on certain sides of the field. They open up better to the middle of the field, on the left side, on the right side. If there's a massive difference between the two, you put someone on the left, you put someone on the right. Richard Sherman, one of the best corners in the world, he didn't travel, I don't think. I think he was, left cornerback? Like all the time, but he was so good. He just shut down that side of the field, almost Deion Sanders style. I like the idea. So it depends. I mean, if you're a two safety team, if that's your thing, and you've got two safeties that are good safeties that can play high safety, post safety, whatever it is you want to call it, then you have some options in terms of bracketing. So when I'm thinking bracketing, I'm thinking now, obviously, if you're in cover zero, you're bracketing people anyway. You got Banjo coverage all over the place. That's just the way it covers. Obviously, there are different forms of cover zero. It's becoming super popular. People are having different variations of it. The Miami Dolphins, for example. But I'm assuming a traditional two-high defense, you would want a safety covering inside leverage. You'd want to put the corner in outside leverage. And, yeah, you could do that. So it really depends on your personnel, like I said. And if you're a two-high team, if you've got two people, I want Epps to be a post safety. He's got that potential. I want to see that from him the rest of this season and the next season. We should get another one, hopefully. And we could run those two people as two deep safeties. We can absolutely bracket the number two for sure. We just need the personnel.
Complicated answer to this. I would say it depends upon the matchup you're playing. Because we run a lot of cover two shell. And I'm not saying the majority of our snaps coming from it, but we're going to be one of the highest utilizations among teams in the NFL. I'm pretty confident in saying that when the reports come out. So what I would argue is that I don't know that it's as necessary to have that kind of style of play as opposed to just ball play. Someone who can break on the football and take it away. Someone that has decent, length and can get in and break up passes, things like that, good foot speed. The attributes of that style of play. Now, I will say where you can get a little technical here, Jalen, and where it might make a little more sense is if you're playing a concept to where, you're in quarters or you're in this kind of coverage, but anything under 5 yards is man concept. So you carry your man under 5 yards. You get what I'm saying, Allie?
Yeah, for sure.
So in that situation, then, you can do some things. There's also some mixed alignment stuff you see. You'll have like one guy's playing a little bit off coverage. The other guy's kind of locked in a little bit more, trying to disrupt the route. I think some of that's guessing at where you think the read might be, though, too. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we want to disrupt this guy's route. We want to try to remove him from the game. And then maybe you can bracket this guy. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, I can completely remove this guy from the read just by being physical with him and disrupting the route to where it's going to throw the timing off and the quarterback's going to have to move on. And then because I've disrupted the route and I've disrupted this player, I can now bracket this player and try to bait the quarterback into making a mistake. Maybe play some robber over the middle, something like that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Typically when that happens, your off coverage player is in bait coverage. Yeah. They're almost in zone coverage at that point. They're staring at the quarterback. They're staring at the receiver. They're not, bailing. They're not turning their hips super early, and they're just really waiting on the route. That's usually what happens.
All right, we got a couple in here. Stephen Price, I see your question, buddy. I'm going to get to you. Just give me 1 second. I got to catch up on a couple of other people. All right, Crypto, I wanted to tackle this one because I know that you're a Minshew guy. He said, maybe we overpaid for Hurts, else is Howie a genius. People keep referencing second-round pick dictates staying with Hurts. I don't know that a second-round pick dictates you stay with anybody, to be quite honest, Crypto. I don't think it's a high enough draft status to warrant you that. I think it's that while his results have been mixed, they've been good enough, and we'll get into this to kind of end the discussion, but I think it's arguable to say that they've been good enough to stick with him, or at least open the competition between two guys in the offseason, but I don't think there's a need to bring in a marquee guy. I don't think there's a need to waste draft picks doing that.
I would agree with that. There's a couple things real quick, and then we'll see where the rest of this goes. So I want to give you an analogy from a different football team, the Denver Broncos, Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. And people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. Teddy Bridgewater is very, very steady. Now, he's played differently this season. I'll grant you that. He's been a little bit more aggressive, and he's made a few more mistakes. But certainly that's his reputation. There's a reputation and a record. So his reputation is he's steady. Very high floor, very low ceiling, relatively speaking. And Drew Lock, he's what, year 3, year 4? Maybe he goes in the bin at this point, but he has the potential to be really great. And, people are hoping, there are glimmers, there are flashes, but there's no consistency, which is the issue. Similarly with Hurts. So I think that Hurts is slightly better than Minshew right now. I think Hurts should get the look right now, the primary look. I also think that Minshew has a much smaller range of variability in outcomes. I think he's a much lower variance playmaker. He's a great backup. I love him as a backup. He's probably one of the best backups in the league. That's what you want in a backup. You want someone steady, someone solid. And Hurts has a higher upside. His issue is consistency, and there are flaws in his game that he's actively working on. He needs to get that stuff better.
Great. So Stephen Price asked a question where he says, I think the best thing to happen to Hurts is his high ankle sprain. Now he's forced to be more of a pocket passer, which is helping him grow more as a pocket passer at a faster rate. What's your thought? I think that's twofold. Allison, let me know if you differ on this, but sure. I think in one way you can argue that because you have limitations to being able to escape the pocket, you have to progress. You have to become better at the pre-snap, which he seems to be progressing a little bit at doing that. I'm not saying that he's there all the way there yet, guys, but he's gotten better from week 1, week 2 to where he's at now. There's improvement. What I will say though is that when you're dealing with a young man where you're already working on his throwing base, it's not helpful when he has a high ankle sprain to try to get the base right. So I think it's a little twofold.
I would absolutely agree with that. I'm going to jump into we're going to rate some quarterbacks one of these days, one of these weeks. I just sent Steve something off air. That's not my official list. That's actually a list from another guy. But going through these traits, we're gonna rank them at some point if that's what you guys want. If you like the idea, you probably will. And so the 5 traits, and Steve and I agree on this: leadership, athleticism, platform, pocket presence, and anticipation. Basically, there are other ways to say that, other ways to phrase it, but those are really the traits you're looking for in a QB. And Hurts is definitely a great leader. And when healthy, he's a great athlete. His issues are really the other three. He very rarely, for whatever reason, he's toesy, he's heel clicky. You've heard all these terms on all these other channels. He lacks a stable base to throw the football. He doesn't put his cleats in the ground very often. He hops like a bunny in the pocket. And it is what it is. I'm not trying to make fun of him. He's a good kid. But if you want to put a lot of velocity, a lot of accuracy in your throws, you need to put your damn cleats in the ground. Sorry for cussing on YouTube. But that's what you got to do. And he's not doing that. And certainly the high ankle sprain isn't helping with that. But he needs practice. One of his biggest issues, he's not steady in the pocket. He gets the slightest bit of pressure. Don't get me wrong, he's gotten very good at sliding. Like, he's gotten very good at that. I've been very impressed by that. Now, that's hard to do on a high ankle sprain, to get to, your second point.
It is.
He's getting better. I want him to be more secure in the pocket. I want him to see pressure and just throw the ball. He gets hit, he gets hit. He gets knocked down, he gets knocked down. I'm not saying he's scared necessarily. I don't want to go that far. But he's a little bit claustrophobic in the pocket. And I don't mean he's gotten way better than he was first half of the year. I watched all the film. He was horrible first half of the year in that way. Mm-hmm. Of course, they put too much on his plate, and they were trying to throw the ball over the field, and we didn't have an offense for that. So he's gotten a lot better. He needs to read the field better, both pre-snap and post-snap, especially post-snap. He needs to be calmer in the pocket, and he needs to throw from a firm foundation. And, it's like Steve said, it's great that he's got the opportunity. As an athlete, you're never forced. This goes back to want to versus should versus have to. He has to be a better pocket passer. He's got the opportunity right there. He can't run on that thing. Not really. And so I think that's a good thing. But to Steve's point, his second point, it's difficult to be a great pocket passer on a high ankle sprain. It just is. I mean, throwing the football consistently well in a crowded pocket, it's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's, like I said, it's complex because there are some things he needs to work on from the base, from the way he throws the football. And you talked about it on I'll say balls that are over about 20 yards in particular, he gets really heel clicky on. He's got to get better at that. I'll say that sometimes just his platform can be all wrong. He's clearly been working on it. I love what he's done from the aspects of sliding the pocket. He's starting to show some of the nuances of how you hang in there tougher. I think the messages have gotten home to him. I think that there's been real progress made this season with him in terms of that. I think that, we're cutting him up, not us, but people cut him up because he missed the Goedert thing. And like I said, missed is a strong word to use. We missed the opportunity. We didn't miss a read there. He made the right read. He just missed the opportunity. With that said, we're cutting him up, but he played on schedule. We can argue this is the next part of what you got to do, which is the anticipation part of that, which is might need to anticipate that more. But with that said, I do see growth. I see real growth from him. So it's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard because you start getting in this quarterback market thing where you really start believing you're a quarterback factory and you can develop anybody, which is just nonsense. You could get yourself in a lot of trouble. Sometimes you just got to try the best you can to develop the guy you have. The grass, it's an old saying, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
I will say this in benefit and favor of Howie. It is super important to have a great backup quarterback, and we do.
Yeah, exactly. It's Philadelphia. It doesn't matter who the backup quarterback was. There's going to be a controversy eventually.
For sure. I almost want to answer this one since this is sort of aimed in my direction. I don't mean that in a bad way. So, yeah, all right. So, Cryptolicious, I think you're right. But I think the offense is also very limited that way. So, yes, short routes, quick routes, medium routes, under 20 yards, under 15 yards. I mean, Minshew's a great distributor. He is great at that. If that's what this offense is, if that's what Sirianni wants it to be, he knows what he needs to do. But Minshew is extremely limited. You get, a lot of tight coverage from the safeties. You get them, 10 yards or quicker, closer to the line of scrimmage. You get corners and more press. And it's going to be very difficult. That offense is, quote-unquote, not sustainable. Minshew is great at the short stuff and the medium stuff. He threw a few great over routes, crossing routes to Quez in the Jets game. I mean, they were great. I love those throws. Most of his throws were not so great, but those are some great throws. But my point is there's a very low ceiling on Minshew, but what Minshew does, he does really well.
They're the opposite of each other, in my opinion. Minshew's a great reader, not a great thrower. Hurts is a way better thrower, not as strong as a reader pre-snap. So to me, it kind of, they're the opposite of each other. It kind of leads into his second question. I'm sorry, I'm leapfrogging some of your questions, guys. I'll get to them, I promise you. He said, what makes Hurts' ceiling? I'm just because it complements what we were talking about, guys. What makes Hurts' ceiling better? He only averages 0.5 yards more per rush than Minshew until his ACL. I heard Mike Vick and Coward talking about how the best quarterbacks are mostly game managers with few mistakes. I disagree with that premise, that the best quarterbacks are game managers. They're never game managers. They might be the more successful with the better team around them. Maybe it's a better way of going to win Super Bowls. I don't necessarily think that the best quarterbacks always are the guys who win Super Bowls.
I'm gonna add this. In Cryptolicious, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. I think you're cool, and we will always welcome good takes here. And by the way, your takes are intelligent. I'm just adding some perspective to them. So here's my take on Hurts versus Minshew. Minshew is a scrambler. Hurts is a runner. So I think that's very different things. It might look the same, but it's not. Obviously, when Hurts is healthy, he can rip a ball for 30 yards easily. He's actually a hot take. He might be more explosive than Miles, maybe, or at least in the same ballpark. Right? I'd love to see the two of them sprint when they're both healthy. I would love to see that. Hurts is super explosive in the run game. Another part of that, another aspect of that, the run game is great when Hurts is healthy because teams have to honor the run on the backside. If you don't contain on the backside, you're dead. 10 yards. I mean, if you're talking about 10 yards consistently, I mean, you're moving the ball. You're matriculating down the field. You're a high conversion, high efficient offense. And you can obviously throw the ball off that. You can do various things off that. Hurts helps the running game when he's healthy a lot. So great offensive line, good to great running backs, a quarterback that is a runner in the sense that he can burn you for 30. He did in the Denver game. He did a few other times. And he's just a different quarterback. He's a runner. He's not a scrambler. And it's just different.
I like the way Messiah put this. Thank you, Messiah. I appreciate that a lot, man. He said, honestly, all those people that were rolling on the health and safety protocol list, very good naming there. I think they've been lifted as of yesterday or earlier today. I'm not sure. So it seems like a lot of them came off the list already. Nice way of phrasing that. That was really, really smart.
That's from what I've heard. Yeah.
What do you think of Willis, NFC East Beast? See, listen, this is the problem with NFC East Beast. He's down there at the beach in Carolina. He's not there. I'm stuck close to the mountains. Now, he said, if available in the 20s, I would draft Willis because I think he could become Watson like after holding the clipboard for a year or two. I'm nervous about drafting Willis NFC East Beast if I'm the Eagles because he's got talent. He's got some pretty – from what I saw on film, he looks like a guy that's got some really good arm talent. The issue I have with Willis is it's a Liberty, man. It's a Liberty University.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can trust it, man. I mean, I know you can say, well, like, come on, dude. We drafted a guy from North Dakota State. I hear you. But Liberty, bro. It's Liberty. I don't know how nuanced that scheme is.
Yeah, so I guess just real quick, Willis, I like Willis. I do. I think he's very similar in a lot of ways to Hurts. I think he is an exponential version of Hurts. By that, I mean his floor is going to be a lot lower and his ceiling could potentially be a lot higher. And the question really is, as an organization, as a team, as a program, do you want someone steady? That would be Minshew. Do you want something with some decent upside, but good room to grow? That's Hurts. Or do you want someone with amazing upside that needs a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of you are totally not ready, but you could be special. I mean, those are the three kind of degrees of program development. The question is, as an organization, what do you want? What are you ready for right now with the team that you have?
Lamar Kennedy, what's up, buddy? He said the mock drafts say the Eagles should pick a linebacker, but I say wait until day 2 or 3 and see what the young guys do. Unless you can get an impact Sam, Lamar, I think we need a Sam linebacker, personally. If you find a guy that athletically, it's hard to say anyone's Anthony Barr, but athletically comps to an Anthony Barr, I'm taking him. Or Jamie Collins, if you guys are uncomfortable assuming any rookie's going to even be in the conversation with an Anthony Barr, Jamie Collins. Just use Jamie Collins. If you can find that guy in the draft, I think that it makes some sense. You know what I mean? It does make some sense to go after that type of player. What are your thoughts around that question?
So I'm going to say two things. I'm looking for my draft board, which we will announce soon-ish. But before I even get to the draft on Saturday, we're talking about free agents. And, oh, by the way, Anthony Barr is a free agent. And I have a lot of stars next to his name because he's familiar with the system. He fits the role. I would give that guy a hard look. Now, I don't know how much he's going to cost, and that's another sheet that I can whatever look at. But there are some good free agents at the SAM and at linebacker at all these positions. We're going to look at that stuff on, Saturday?
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at my draft board here. Forgive me, I don't know what position these guys are in, but Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd, Brandon Smith, Christian Harris, Travis Jones. When you say SAM, are these people going to be listed as edges or are they going to be listed as linebackers? Most likely.
Could be either. Could be either, technically. It could be either, Ali. You might need to look at guys that are maybe kind of being phased as possibly being a 34 edge rusher that could potentially play a SAM in our system. That is possible. But what I mean is you want a guy that's built like a defensive end, but has that crazy length to him, but it's just athletic profile is completely different.
Let me get back to more of Lamar's point at its core, and I appreciate the question and the comment. So I like the people that we have. We obviously need to take a look at free agents in the draft, but the question is need. And we talked in today's or earlier podcast about impact players versus impact position. And so I like Edwards a lot. I like Davion Taylor a lot. Shoot, I even like Singleton. And Jannard Avery, he's kind of popped the last game or two. I'd like to see him pop the next several games. And shoot, I'll even consider keeping him around. Obviously, you want to take a look. But to, I think, Lamar's point, our linebackers are playing well, especially recently. And we should be happy about that. It's great to have depth.
Yeah. Interesting, Jalen. So did you see Jalen's recommendation here? He said, how you fix Hurts playing on schedule is you give him one skill position player and two offensive linemen on offense versus the first team defense in training camp. Rules are there's no scrambling and you can only move up in the pocket.
That'd be pretty cool. I love games. We're going to play some games on Saturday probably. I love games. I like fun stuff and rules. I think Hurts is a good guy. I think Brian Johnson is a good guy. I think, especially if they decide to keep him, which they probably will for various reasons, at least for another year, you really need 3 years to see somebody have a base to be like, okay, well, what's the base? What's the worst we're going to get out of this guy? And so I think they're going to give him another year for various reasons. And I think Hurts is going to be good with that. So I don't want to tease stuff too much. We're obviously going to take a look at free agents and the draft in the next couple of weekends. I do believe we should get him an X one way or another. And then I would say an interior offensive lineman. We're on our fifth guard. To definitely get some depth there. I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jalen said, hey, am I the only person who sees the parallel between our team this year and the Bills with Tyrod? Yes, our offense is more expensive, but the way it's done is the same. I can see that from the simplification of the offense aspect of things. Late kind of adjustments that we've made recently into the running game. I can see it. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember. Who was that? I think it was the running back coach that used to be on the Chargers. I think was their offensive coordinator. Can't remember his name, Jalen. What's up, Mr. Diaz? He says, yeah, 5 days of quarantine rule.
Yep.
Malad said, no quarterbacks, please.
Agreed. We've got two. We don't need a third one. And then that's what Reed Sinnett is for. I have no offense to Reed Sinnett, but, you have an emergency quarterback for a reason. We've already got two good ones.
Jalen said the year they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game, the season they went there. I have to go back and look at it, Jalen, to be honest. We need to build more defense. We need to build more on defense. I agree.
Me too.
So he said Graham is 34 coming off of an Achilles. Yeah, it's scary, but I'm hoping he's okay because he's still one of our better players. I hate to say it. He just is.
He's also a great locker room guy. I'd like to keep him if I can. At least for another year.
No, if the guy doesn't throw 70% completion rate.
Is that Hurts? Is that Minshew? Or is that quarterbacks in general?
I think Edwin was referring to getting a quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. But then that's college. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Need linebackers for obvious reasons, of course. What's Liberty University? It's a very, very small school, pretty close to where I'm at, actually. It's I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like up 58.
It's Jerry Falwell School.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Jerry Falwell. Exactly. Yeah. If Graham was still corner or safety, preferably safety.
Yeah. Safety. What's that?
I'm sorry. I'm just saying what's up to people.
Oh, yeah. Fly, Eagles, fly.
We winning a playoff game?
If we run the football, yes.
I'll take it. 72 and sunny today. Thanks for rubbing that in, man. Appreciate that, MC's piece. Now, if the value isn't there, you go best player available. It's kind of like what I think I said at the one live stream we were doing. Defensive end, safety, and cornerback. People chiming in on the draft.
Yeah.
Ref Taco says, yo, I always come here late. I'm just trying to catch up on a few comments, guys. Jalen Williams said Liberty and North Dakota State University are two totally different programs. If you say JMU, I understand. Probably. Well, Liberty, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. What were you going to say, Allie?
I was just going to agree with Jalen. JMU and DSU, they're at the top of the FCS, and Liberty is not. They're a growing program, and Malik Willis is a great talent, but it's not nearly on the same level at all.
Yeah. We had JOK last year. I was yelling to draft him. Mr. Diaz said, I wish they let fans draft.
Here's what I want to do.
Imagine a fans draft, bro. It would be funny, though. It would be a lot of fun.
In a couple weeks, we might do the draft in a couple weeks. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see with our schedules. But I really want you guys to chime in and do a draft with us. Maybe a mock draft, maybe something. Just give us your opinions. I mean, we're certainly going to do ours, and we love to hear who you want to draft based on who's there and what the pick is and whatever.
So we normally done a simulated draft where we'll use a simulator. So this could be the first year that you get to join in on this, Allison, and be part of the executive committee here to where we try to convince them not to take certain players, but they take them anyways.
Appreciate that.
It's always fun. Messiah said, what are some good things about our defense? I need some convincing.
Our run defense, I think, is very good.
Yeah, we got rid of Eric Wilson.
Yeah.
Too much money for Barr. This team shouldn't make any real major free agency moves until we pay our bills the right way. This way of handling the cap will keep us in the middle to the bottom for extended time. I hear you. This is an interesting take here. Hurts has a high floor. The only debate is how high his ceiling is.
I like that. I hope that's true about his high floor.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I put his floor. It's an interesting perspective, 2020. I never really thought about it in that way. I'd have to really think it and sit down and really come up with where I think his floor would be. Oh, good point. NFCSB said, I think the Stash will request a trade if there's no quarterback competition.
I kind of sort of disagree. I don't know. I could be wrong. Carson, C-Dub, I'm going to call him C-Dub since we don't like using his name. I think that's a C-Dub move. I don't think that's a Minshew move. Minshew wants to play, wants to win, and I don't think he's going to cause a controversy. I think we as fans and media are going to cause a controversy. I don't think he's going to do that.
How long should we keep Slay since he's about to be 31? As long as the duct tape will hold him together, man. Nah.
Yeah.
It's contract based, right? I mean, performance based upon the contract. I mean, look, some guys make it a really long time in the league. Champ Bailey comes to mind. Champ Bailey played forever.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys really do make it. Some guys hanging there for a long time. Probably a little difficult for skill position players, though, to make it. I feel like once that drop occurs, the drop is very sudden and quick from the skill position. Normally. I should preface everything by saying normality. 3-Card Monty said, is it a religious school? It is definitely a religious school, Liberty University. Close to Virginia Tech. Yeah, Blacksburg's probably a little ways away, but definitely closer to Virginia Tech than UVA.
For sure.
Three Card Money said, "What's the status of Jordan Howard? Will he play Sunday?" I haven't heard that he wouldn't play, so I'm assuming he's going to be in. Three Card Money. If he's not in, going to be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah.
Probably if he doesn't play, it'd probably be a really good idea, a really good decision they made to have brought back Kerryon Johnson to the practice squad. That would probably be a really good decision if that ends up happening. Eagles fan 1999. What's up? Is this Donovan? Get a quarterback.
Quick Kerryon Johnson question. I know he's got great measurables. Who would you comp him to? I don't remember him very well.
Kerryon Johnson, he's a really good pass pro back.
Okay.
He's a really good pass pro back. He's a better receiving option than a Jordan Howard, which is not saying much, but he's got okay hands.
Sure.
Little more versatile as a runner, but he blew out his knee. I think that was the concern with him.
Right.
But there was an early part of his career where he could definitely get to the outside edge if you gave him a lane. He could run in between the tackles. Definitely probably a little bit more inside runner in my opinion.
Sure.
He's not quite Jordan Howard. He's not really that type of contact balance back, but gives you good versatility. Bigger, better pass pro back than Boston Scott. Not quite as explosive inside with that wiggle in the move as Boston.
Sure. That makes sense.
He's
I like
kind
that.
of in that realm.
Yeah.
Way better pass pro back, though, than Boston is. Good point, Jalen. He says, sorry, between UVA and Virginia Tech is where Liberty University is. Yeah, pretty much, right?
Yep.
It's kind of away as you get kind of closer to the mountains almost. It's not in the mountains, though. It's kind of a weird location. Draft the nastiest game record that they got at rusher. We need some defensive line talent. There's no doubt about it.
I don't want to go too deep, but I want to honor Crypto's comment. Who do you think? Who's the biggest dog in terms of edge players in the draft? Yeah,
it's still early. I like Hutchinson a lot from Michigan, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I can't remember the young. I know it's like a French name. The young man that's out there at Oregon. Thibodeau, something like that.
Thibodeau? Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely got the athletic profile.
Sure.
I don't know, he had a really productive year as a freshman. Then, he's kind of come down to reality a little bit, but the athletic profile is going to be there to intrigue a lot of people that guy could develop into himself in the league and become a force to reckon with. But right. I like Hutchinson's game a lot. Eagles fan 99 is on the Matt Corral or Kenny Pickett train.
I'll give him credit.
Small hands, Kenny.
Yeah, baby hands.
Yeah, baby hands, Kenny. Frank Wright. High floor. That's the dumbest analogy I ever heard. No, I wouldn't say that. Floor's a real thing. Your ceiling and your floor is a real thing. What he's saying is that when you're talking about the floor, it means how low your performance can be. And I guess a great example of this, Frank, would be I would have never thought Carson's floor would have been what we saw in 2020. I thought it was higher than that. So, I mean, I do think that there's a legitimate argument around what a guy's floor is versus their ceiling. I will use all three first-round picks, heavy on defense, and then in free agency go for a big-time wide receiver. I definitely think you should go for wide receiver in free agency. I don't want to give away what we're going to do in the draft because we're going to cover that. Richie MC said, does the stash really have suitors if there's no big injury to a starting quarterback? Carolina and a few other teams were interested in him, so I think he does. Saturday, that man named CW, all he did was make the decision that was best for himself. I know I'm going to get hate for this. Well, Jalen, we were both Carson guys, so the fact that we're off that train should speak volumes. 2020 is 100 times long on Hurts, but we've seen his floor 0 points versus the Giants. Not really. 2020's kind of come off of Hurts. I mean, 2020 said to me in numerous comments that he was pretty concerned about this stretch, and he thought that if things went the wrong way down the stretch, that they would probably move on and in the right to do so. So, I mean, I think he's actually kind of, he was high on Hurts. He thought Hurts was going to be really good. And then when he kind of saw that floor play itself out against the Giants, he said, like, hey, if this doesn't get better than this, like, they're probably going to move on. So I got to give him credit. I mean, it's not easy when you're on when you're considered to be on the bandwagon of a guy. It's pretty hard to change course. That's not an easy thing to do. But I give him credit for that. Speaking of him, I think the Eagles and Hurts should win 9 games, 3,300 yards passing, 1,000 yards running. That's a high floor Gates for the first season as a starter. Your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, look, I look at his ceiling and floor more so from the pocket and what he can develop into. I mean, his athletic profile is not the problem. His athletic profile is through the roof. It's more so what he can do from the pocket. That's what's going to, I think, make him into what could become a dynamic player in the NFL and over time become a potential top 12 quarterback. I'm not professing that he's there, but over time, that's what you're looking for, is someone to become more nuanced in the pocket, be able to do those things, and then potentially become that guy. Allison, do you have thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so I mean, there are definitely holes in Hurts' game. So Hurts used his athleticism and his leadership to help the team win games. And I think one of the things, and I hear a lot of commenters and content creators talk about this, and I think it's right. The really nice thing about Hurts is he can win games while he's growing. And you can't say that about a lot of quarterbacks because they don't have that athletic profile. Now, he's less athletic now being hurt, and he's growing, and, we need to hope the receivers are doing their job, the line's doing their job, and Hurts is doing his job. So it's there's less margin for error because he isn't as athletic as he used to be. But sure. I would mostly agree with you.
So what's up, Mexa Ali? I appreciate you coming in. I'm trying to get to some of you guys that haven't had an opportunity to comment a lot and have us respond, because we're coming in on the hour and 30 mark, guys. So we got to get off here in a few more minutes. But Hurts is going to be our X factor next year. And he said, I really like that cornerback from Cincinnati, Ahmad Garner. I like him a lot too, man. I know that Ali's you're pretty high on him as well.
I am, yes.
Eagles is landed coming in with the Ojubo. Is that how you say his name? Ojubo, I think.
I want to say
David Ojubo from Michigan.
Yeah, no, he's good.
Mm-hmm. Frank came back and said, those are good points. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find people who maybe haven't had an opportunity to talk too much on the stream. I'm trying to get them on here before we jump off. Richie MC said Aiden Hutchinson versus Evan Neal has history not shown that drafting an edge with the first overall pick does not really work. Clowney, Gilbert, Courtney Brown. I hope we're not trading up to number 1, Richie. That's a heavy cost evaluation. We're going to give up a lot. Probably far more than the 3 picks we have.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really want to trade up at all, but definitely not to number 1.
Rebuilding and contending is the hardest thing to do in football. We're the only, in the past 5 years, besides the Bills, to do that.
Real quick, the biggest thing that I think hurt us as a team and hurt Peterson is the team wanted a Super Bowl window. They wanted to contend over and over and over again, and unless you're the Patriots, that's not really too sustainable. And we're paying the bills on that now.
All right, guys. It is an hour and 29 minutes into this live stream. I'm about to turn this off, guys. I do appreciate y'all for coming in and chatting with us. Just a quick note, I will be back tomorrow at 9:05 a.m. live. So if you want to talk some football in the morning, I'm crazy enough to do it. So I'll be back at 9 o'clock in the morning to talk football with everybody. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate this. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed the chat conversation today, guys. Thank you so much. At one point, we almost had 80 people in this live stream, guys, at one point. That's really cool, guys. Thank you all so much. It's a lot of love, a lot of support. You guys are awesome. We appreciate y'all. Remember, guys, announcement coming up on Friday. Jalen, I'm going to talk to the channel members tomorrow. I'm going to send out some stuff. So we'll talk sometime tomorrow. And, guys, I appreciate y'all. We'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you, Ali.
See ya.